Introducing the ultimate seat cover, Tiger Tough. Proudly made in the US of A, waterproof and backed by an unconditional warranty. Yes, you heard it right. 2 years on vehicles and a lifetime guarantee on heavy equipment. They have you covered for manufacturer defects, normal wear and tear, and even those oh shit moments. Tiger Tough covers are meticulously crafted for a perfect fit with over 30,000 pre-fit designs, ensuring they stay in place without any shifting or sliding. Plus, they're even machine washable. Don't settle for less. Get a seat cover today that's built to last. Order today at tigertough.com/dirt. Get a free logo embroidery on your first order if you use the code DIRTBAG at checkout. Once received, show us your new badass seat covers with your logo and tag us. Experience durability and quality with Tiger Tough seat covers. Toughness guaranteed.
What's up, you dirtbags? My name is Luke Egebraten. I am one of your co-hosts of the Dirtbags podcast. Joining me in studio, Mr. Luke Payne. How are we doing, brother?
Cheers to you, my man. This is night 3. Yeah. We're on a 3-day bender right now.
Yeah, Olivia's got some questions. She's like, are you guys even recording, or are you just drinking with Luke?
Yeah, it's 100% what we're doing. It's funny. Riley and I went to dinner before this too, and we were talking about our days, and I was going off on a tangent on something, and she's like, oh, I'm sorry, let's watch a movie or something tonight. And I said, nope, sorry, can't have a podcast with Luke. And she goes, I'm going to text him. And I was like, what are you going to say? And she's like, give me my husband back. I'm like, fair enough. But
yeah, dude, we've been grinding though, in a good way. Like, I say grinding, but I mean, this is like one of my favorite things to do. And yeah, we had the webinar Monday, and then we had a podcast with Benjamin Holmgren Tuesday yesterday, and then today we're doing one that I'm super excited about. I don't want to dive into it yet because we got some other things to catch up on, but we're talking about owner's pay today. And so it's in the title. Super, super excited. But yeah, Luke, we jumped on like an hour ago and we didn't hit record till now. So
we should have, because we were ranting to each other. We had a great conversation before this.
Yeah, I feel like too, like some of it is just us catching up, of course, and then a lot of it's private stuff that we talk about that I haven't talked to anyone about. Just you kind of bottle it up, and so it's been nice to just like vent a little bit sometimes before you hit record.
When you need those people that you
fired up. We're all fired 100%. Up before the podcast here.
Have a couple drinks in you, but you do need somebody that you can like openly talk to and like share your frustration without having to feel like a burden.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. That's a good point. And somebody that can understand where you come from, like as far as business or even just your personality, but that can probably also relate to you of like similar shits happen to them. So
100%.
That's what makes the podcast fun. It's like, it's so different, and you usually come in with different emotions. Like I remember I was listening back, and I feel bad too. The one with Weston, great episode, but I was like on my deathbed that day, and I was sick, so sick. And I was listening back, and I was like, my voice sounded so deep and disgusting. And then I was watching the video. I'm like sweating,
bags under your eyes.
Dude, I'm surprised I made it to that one. And, but super grateful we got it done. And Weston was awesome. And he's great. He's done interviews before, and so he's a great talker, but I was dying on that one. So
yeah, you didn't look the greatest on that one.
No,
so don't worry, I'll carry the team on those.
Yeah. And no, feeling great now. Might have to refill before we finish.
I know we're almost done with mine from that hour and a half conversation.
Actually, I knew tonight was going to be a fun one. So I had and shout out to TriStar Land Solutions. They gave me that bottle of Maker's Mark. So had a glass of that, but then I was like, just in case, found a little Topo Chico, and I'm not
seltzer.
Not a seltzer guy, but I was like, well, we'll grab it just in case we have to bust into the reserve here if we get into some good conversation. So I think that'll probably happen on this one.
Dude, I'll tell you what, you get me on like an 80 to an 85 degree day on the golf course, and I will fuck up some carblesses. I love those, which sounds really like femmy, but I love those. Give me a lemon lime one.
It is, so to give everyone some context, it's 6:30 p.m. right now, and it's 89 degrees. So it's some seltzer weather, I guess.
It is seltzer weather. You just need some clubs in your hand now.
Yeah. But dude, how's spring going? How's business? Any anything we can touch on before we dive into owner's pay?
Dude, spring is good. It's people that have, it's getting people back on track from being off all winter, not in the groove of urgency, in the more of like relaxed, and I don't have to work. It's winter. I'm not
Yeah.
doing anything. So that's been I don't want, it has been a struggle.
Yeah.
We're forgetting a lot of things. We're just not on our A game right now, which we understand. Again, like we said, it's early season, but kind of a weird year with contractors too. There just seems to be no understanding. And so we're dealing with that. We're trying to figure out how to gauge that from where, you leave in the fall and there's, yep, nope, great, everything looks good. You guys did awesome. To in the spring, it's just a totally different attitude and it's
Wow.
your fault they're having a bad day. So that's been interesting to try to deal with this year. Yeah, man. How about yourself?
Yeah, it's been good. I mean, obviously seasons don't mess with us too much. But definitely a different season of business for us. So we historically we have been mostly subcontractors. So if anyone that's heard me talk about our business structure, we have consistent subcontractors that have worked with me for the last few years. And it's a very simple model. We're very blessed in the digital space to be able to do this. But basically, I'll find somebody in the country that's really good at like graphic design or building websites. And I'll say, hey, I'll pay you $30 an hour if you come work with me. And it's not going to be 40 hours a week. It's going to be a contract, but we'll figure it out from there. And so we built up a team, about 10 to 12 consistent subcontractors over the years, and they've been with me since the beginning. And now we hired Josie full-time last year as like our director of operations. And now this year, our goal is to, hit that 7-figure mark and then really start to bring some pieces in-house for two reasons. We'll be able to control our margins a bit more and honestly just make more on it. And then second thing is to deliver better results. Like if you have a team working 8 to 5 in the office, working with me, working with our clients, it's just going to be so much better. So kind of in just the hiring phase, which is new for me full time. And
Exciting.
so we hired Dirtbag Brandon.
Yep.
He is
Shout out, Brandon.
shout out Brandon. He is our Dirtbags producer. He's been with us. He's been with the Dirtbags since day one of Dirtbags. He's been working for Phaser for almost 4 years now, and
Wow.
kind of a cool structure. So Luke, you and I talked about it. So Brandon graduated in March, and I'm like, we got to hire this guy full time. Dirtbags is paying a portion of his salary, and then Phaser's paying the rest. And then we just hired another new guy. His name's Connor. He's a stud. He's very ingrained with like systems and operations and CRMs and workflows. So he comes in with 7 years of marketing experience. And he's 25, and he started on Monday. And then next Monday we have another new guy starting from Columbia full time. So we're kind of just in that hiring mood. And what we're doing though is as we hire full time, we're starting to replace some of those contracts that we pay.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like we're bringing in $1 and getting rid of like 90 cents, I would
Yep.
say. So it's still
Bringing in more value.
100%, dude.
Yeah.
And so that'll be exciting to see how that goes this year. And I'll probably lean on you more too, of like just managing people, and because that will be a little different. But I'm excited. It's kind of a fun chapter of the business, and excited to like have some more full-time employees.
Yeah, dude, it's a blast. People that constantly complain about a hiring pool or, employees, I don't get it. I mean, I'm sure
Yeah.
everybody has their bad days. Everybody has issues. It's just get over them. You're there to be a team to make a business great.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's cool too. Even like, and I get it. Like our business is so much different. Like I'm in Arizona, Josie's in Minnesota, Brandon's in Tennessee, and then Connor's in Florida, and then our new guy's in Columbia. So
You guys are all over.
yeah, and it's easier to hire for us, and I'm not afraid to say that. It's just very easy.
Yep.
But I talked to other contractors, and there's some of our guys that they love their team, and they all enjoy working together, and they celebrate. And yes, they still struggle hiring maybe some extra help, but it doesn't always have to be as doom and gloom as most
Most
contractors
people
make it out to be. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. There's a lot more emphasis on not finding people for the industry. Or what did I say? There's too much emphasis on that
Yeah.
to where I
Right.
don't think there's not enough emphasis on the people that you have and how you're looking after your current employee pool. You know, are you making sure that they have everything they need? Are you looking at
Yeah.
the business as a whole? Are you trying to push it? Things like that. You know, it's good to take a step back every now and then too. So
Yeah. And also too, like if you're, let's say your current employee that's been putting in 4 years and gives their blood, sweat, and tears for you, and they see you just complaining about the talent pool and like you can't find anyone to work, nobody wants to work, and they're just like, what am I
dude, I'm
like?
here. Yeah.
I'm here. Like, hey, don't forget about me.
Recognize your people.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
And then even worse, if that person leaves and you have to replace that person again, now it's just you're going backwards because if you're paying somebody 70K a year, it takes a lot more to hire a new person
100%.
because you got to train them, you got to, pay the benefits and everything. It's just if you've got somebody that's crushing it, go above and beyond for them.
100%. With that point that I said previously, you got to recognize your people.
Yeah.
I do think there is a fine line between doing your job and going above and beyond.
Yeah.
And you
Dude.
have to know where that line is because I feel like a lot of people get that skewed to where if they do their job, they think that they need praise, which you should not have that attitude. Luke, this could be a rant topic, but we can
I
say that
feel
for
like
another day. But
I, I mean, so yeah, you're probably right. We should save it because I really want to dive into this, but that is a really good topic and something that I've heard talked about too is like it's almost like that salary mentality
yeah,
of hey, I just get your shit done or like get your work done and we don't need to calculate our minutes here or go do something for 12 minutes just to hit 5 o'clock. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
I
A
always grew
salary
up.
is a guarantee. You should
Yeah.
look at it. It's like this business is guaranteeing me something when they have none.
Yeah, but the mentality of like you shouldn't have to look at the clock. You shouldn't have to say, "Oh, I'm going to work 40 hours." It's like just get your stuff done. It might be 50, it might be 38 one week.
Yep.
But go above and beyond. And I think yeah, as an owner, as a leader, I was talking about this today with my coaches of like how do we define what above and beyond is
Yeah.
because uh that probably looks a lot different in your vocabulary and mine
Yep.
than maybe one of our employees.
Yep. No, I'm writing that down because I'm like, how do you identify that? Because you have two different lenses.
Yeah.
You have the employers and the employees version. What is that? Oh, no. Fuck yeah,
Yeah.
Luke. All right,
And
making notes of that. And I don't want to go on the
well,
topic of
I'm gonna go off a little bit more on it because I'm just kind of unpacking this in my head as well because it what is it gonna hurt you to try and unpack that with your employee? Because your employee just wants to know like how can I go above and beyond? And they might not know your definition of that
Yep.
because you've never set out to understand that definition. I and I'm saying this from experience because I haven't. I've never specifically transparently told somebody what I think above and beyond would be and give examples.
Yep.
And I think that's me doing our employees a disservice of like, here's how you can go above and beyond. Here is like what's expected. Here's just baseline standard.
Yep.
But here's how you can really impress and grow yourself and detail that out. So as we just unpacked that there, I know I need to do more of that and you do as well. But
Yep.
anyone listening too, like think about have you communicated that with your team? Because there are people that want to do that, want to go above and beyond, but they just don't know like where that line is.
Correct. 100%. Great point. Great point. Yeah, you got my wheels turning on that. So, but anyway, we are doing an owner's pay episode tonight. This can technically be, it's not really a rant, but it's kind of a Q&A, but also like an explanation and thoughts and
Dude, I think this one was just a well-needed topic
yeah.
that, yeah, you're right. It's kind of a mix between a rant. It's one question,
Mhm.
but here's what I thought was so cool about it. And this is personally why I think the Dirtbags podcast and the community is so great. So we got an email here that I'm going to read off in a little bit from a dirtbag, from a listener. He had a very specific question and a scenario.
Mhm.
And Luke, I sent it to Luke and he's like, that's tough. I mean, it's just situational. Like, how do we answer that. And so I posted it on our Dirtbag story. I think we had like
Dude, we had a lot of replies.
we had like 15 or 17 replies. And basically what I said is, hey, we had this question of how do owners pay themselves in the dirt world on average, and how long does it take them to get there? And we had like 15 to 17 legitimate companies that we know, or owners that we know, that are running a 500K to a probably 5 million, $10 million company.
Yep.
And very honest. And I told them,
Yep.
like, we won't say your name on the podcast, but if we could just get some honest insight. And we're going to go through all of those, because as I was going through, I'm like, this is gold, because this is a topic that is never talked about. And
No.
even as long as, Luke, as long as you and I have been listening to podcasts, podcasting, reading, all this, nobody really talks about owners' pay in a way that can relate to like our entire audience.
100%. And how they got there.
Yeah. And how they got there and how long it took. And I think that'll set some expectations, because I know we have listeners that want to start a business. We have listeners that are 2 years in, 5 years in, 10 years in. So I think this will be a really cool episode to really dive in. So do you have anything before I kick this off here?
Read it off, man. I'm looking forward to answering these. This can be a fun one.
All right, sweet. So got a question here. I'm just going to read the whole thing, because this is great.
I got it pulled up.
He goes, hey, dirtbags. Thanks for all you do. I just heard about you guys. I'm hooked. I'm loving the podcast, and I can't wait to sign up for the next Dirtbags University webinar. Luke Payne, your story is super impactful to me, especially as someone working full-time and working weekends in my business right now.
Good for
Luke
him.
E., I love the niche you found in the marketing industry. So cool. Would love to hire Phaser at some point for phase 1. I could probably work on SEO. I have a question for your next Q&A. This might be an awkward question to answer, but I think it's something that would benefit your audience to talk about. It's about pay. No, it's not all about money to me. I'm not trying to get stupid rich. I'm just curious how realistically it compares with my current job, and I'm trying to plan how soon I can leave my full-time job and I can support my family and pay the mortgage with the same replacement income from my business. I'm currently paid $85K plus benefits as an early career civil engineer, and I'm comfortable with that amount. But honestly, it sucks. I hate it. Office jobs aren't for me, and I've always wanted to start a construction company. I'm passionate about making opportunities for employees in the industry and making a positive impact in their lives. I don't just do it for the money. So I'm sold out on this. Just trying to plan. I know this topic is usually pretty hush-hush, which makes sense. You don't want to announce it to the world, but wondering what level of transparency you're comfortable with to help people like me plan and consider this. Shoot, maybe I would quit. He goes, shoot, maybe I could quit right now and make the same base salary with consistent work. Thanks. So, amazing question. He laid it all out. Super excited. Luke, if you want to take the first one, we're just going to go through the responses we got from Dirtbag listeners, real construction company owners, like I said, in the range of 500K, million, 2 million, 5 million, all in there.
Perfect. And then I think you and I should give our opinions on the end of this loop on that question. Okay, so the first reply I have here, answer, again, not saying names. 4 years it took to pay livable wage to myself, $75,000 a year. If you don't pay yourself, you'll always have an excuse why you can't pay yourself. Make it a bill. If you have to pay, you'll figure out a way and stuff as much through, or figure out a way and stuff as much shit company as expenses. Maybe I'm butchering that, but make it a bill.
You had a few before the show, so
yeah, make it a bill you have to pay. You'll figure out a way and stuff as much shit through company as expenses.
So with this one, give it a little context. Canadian company, excavation. So gives you guys some insight there. So 4 years it took to pay a livable wage. But what he says here, Luke, I think is very important. You can't ignore that you need to pay yourself.
Yeah.
And you almost want to treat it like a bill or like an expense. And I think that's super valuable. And what I always look at it, because I was talking to somebody the other day, they do $1.1 million, but they don't pay themselves. And I'm like, well, why not? And they're like, well, we're reinvesting into the business. And I'm like, well, and this is a side hustle minded. So I'm like confused of like, well, this is a rocking business,
Yeah,
but there's no profit. And on top of it, there's definitely no profit because you're not paying somebody to run the business. So treat yourself as the owner, pay a reasonable wage of what it would take to run that business when you get to that point, but kind of treat it as that expense or a bill as if you were to replace yourself.
I agree. I'm gonna withhold my comments until we go through some more of the responses because we can kind of go on on a rabbit hole on this one. So
Cool. Let me take the next one here. Year 2, take out only what's absolutely necessary to pay my monthly rent. Everything will go right back into the business until year 5.
it's cool that he has a target year from when he'd like to, you know, um, I, I like that just to have an idea.
Yeah. Sets the expectation and delayed gratification too. So,
Yeah, it gives him kind of a roadmap. Um, okay, next one. It is 25% of the net year 3.
okay.
Good way to do it.
Year 1 and 2, probably just no pay.
I would have, yeah, I mean, year 1 and 2, you're grinding.
Yeah.
I'll be, I'll be honest, you're not thinking about owner's pay on year 1 and 2.
No.
You're worried about making your payments, making your, paying your bills.
Yeah. That's interesting. 25% of the net.
That is. Yeah, I wonder, you would definitely focus on your net compared to your gross at that, and
Which I
it
like
would
that.
set a
Yeah.
really good standard. I like that too.
Cool. Going into year 3 and haven't paid myself a dime. Everything goes back into the business.
I don't agree with it. Going into year 3, I think you should have some sort of a plan to figure how to pay yourself. You should understand how much your business costs you, and you should be able to pay yourself based on that. But
Yeah.
that's just a quick opinion.
Yep. Yep.
All right. Our owners are currently only at 80,000 per year, and that has slowly risen from a low of 55,000 per year from our start. We come to this number by setting aside 3% of our revenue into an owner's pay account. We are set up that the company pays all taxes, so that is a take-home number for our owners. We also do a 1 to 2% annual revenue distribution that we decide quarterly to distribute to owners or pay down additional debt. And then another response, sorry, we are in year 5 now, and our goal is to increase that pay to 90K this year and then 100K next year.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Very,
good.
very calculated.
Yep.
First thoughts are I like how they have a reasonable base, it seems, and
Yep.
they systematically and strategically
Increase.
increase it each year.
Yep.
But then I really like how they're setting aside 3% of revenue into an owner's pay account. I think that's really clever
I do too.
because it gets you in that habit of like, let's stow it away. It's kind of like setting aside money for taxes. Like you can't just use the tax money.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then,
it brings up the idea of Ben last night talking about, the Profit First book. It
yep,
kind of applies that with the different bank accounts.
yep. And then also too that he also added in 1 to 2% annual revenue distribution that they decide quarterly to distribute to owners or pay down additional debt. So it's like a group decision of
Yep.
where are we at? What do we want to do with this?
I like that. I wonder when they started or when they came up with the 55,000 per year. It says from our start. So was that starting year 1, or was that starting when there was finally a profit in the business? But good insight. I
Yeah,
like.
and this one too, it sounds like there's additional owners. So
Yep.
that's important to note. And yeah, it's kind of like our Dirtbags ownership group where we distribute the funds in green chips.
Yeah, and blackjack tips. Luke, we never told our blackjack story at Arizona, so we'll have to go on that on a different topic. But that was the most fun blackjack table I've ever been at.
I think we could do it at the end. So if you're still listening, stay to the end.
You'll want to hear this one because this is hilarious.
Okay. Okay. So next one, Canadian company. And we got not enough with the sweating face, roughly 100K working on year 8. So we got a few more to unpack it.
Yep.
But I also rent my basement suite to the business for 3K a month, have a truck and fuel covered by the company, as well as cell phone, internet, etc. So that adds up. And he also said, cost of living is so different from one place to the next. Our house is worth over 1.3 million. Places like this in Texas are probably 500 to 600K. So that's an interesting point that we haven't heard yet. I like how he added in some of the benefits.
Yeah.
But Wi-Fi, cell phone, truck, fuel, and that's stuff that you're not paying personally, which technically goes into owner's pay because that would be a distribution to yourself or executive expenses. So, um, Luke, curious on your thoughts on that. If you take that into account, usually, especially when you're starting out, or what your thoughts on that one were.
Um, so working on year 8, roughly 100K. So Canadian company, right? If you're $100,000 in Canada, you're $72,000 in
Right.
America. So to me, I mean, that's on par. Year 8, you know, it's all on how you want to operate your business. In year 8 in my business, I'm able to take a little bit of a step back,
Yeah.
enjoy things a little bit more, and then take, you know, Randy always tells us, he's like, create, create your business to be just this machine. And
Yeah.
then 2, 3 years down the road, that machine is going to pay you dividends. That
Yeah.
machine is going to pay your big salary. And it was, and I don't know if I can speak on his end, but I will. From what he told us that he took from Blunt at the time was only 120,000 for somebody doing over 150 million
Wow.
dollars in revenue for taking. And I mean, he lived in Phoenix. Phoenix can't be a cheap place to live. So
Right.
that just shows, that just the diverseness in owner
Yeah.
salary, I guess. So
Yeah. And I think I'll go on that point too. So the owner's salary, I think, should just be what it takes for that type of person to run the jobs that you're doing. The roles and tasks that you're doing. So you can make more than whatever you're making in the distributions at the end of the year with the profits or quarterly profit distribution. So, but no matter what, you should be setting that fair market wage for yourself, especially if you're an S corp. And then also just think like, okay, if somebody were to replace me and I pay them 75K to do what I do?
correct.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Then that's a good market based wage. And then anything extra would then come home in the form of a distribution.
Yep.
Also,
Absolutely.
I popped into the Topo
You open
Chico. So
Tobo. I love it.
yeah.
No, I mean, it's all relative. Canada is definitely a different type of living too, because I understand like the houses up there are ridiculous. I
It,
could, if I
yeah.
was paying myself $70,000 in America, you'd maybe get a $400,000 house without
Right.
any debt behind you. So yeah, it's just different living. And
Yeah. They
then
also don't pay for healthcare, I think, right?
they don't know because that's just provided, I believe.
Yeah.
It's just a
Not that
thing.
that's a big deal, but
Yeah. Um Luke, I'm so from that one to the next one, I'm just using my mouse here, and it looks like I've got my advice from what that question was at the beginning. I'm gonna skip over that one, and
yep.
then we have another Canadian company here.
Lots of dirtbag
A
Canadians. I
lot of
like it.
Canadians here. Appreciate all the answers here, guys. Um, this one states, pay yourself a wage what your position is worth if you were to hire it out. Then control additional profits through dividends at your discretion based on cash on hand and projected cash flow and goals for the business. I agree with that totally.
Dude, that's what we were just talking about. That's spot on. I love
Yep,
it. I
that's a good one.
squeaked there a little bit.
No, that's okay.
Here we go. It's the Topo Chico. Okay, this one's interesting. $0 salary. The business pays most of my expenses, and my wife earns enough to keep the personal bills paid. If we need extra money, it's always in the business account, but so far in 4 years, I have never needed to pull from it. The more you pay yourself, the more you will spend on unnecessary things. Pay yourself what you need to live and a bit extra for rainy days. Anything extra stays in the business and gets taxed at a much lower rate.
I didn't have that one on mine, so I'm glad you brought that one up.
That's an interesting one. So, Luke, my thoughts on this, I think it's almost like a tale of two sections here, because at the beginning it says $0 salary. Like I just think we need to adjust that instead of like pulling for expenses. And you know,
Look at your tax brackets because it goes from 0 to 23,000, 23 and a half to 33,000. Look at that's where my head goes right away.
yeah. But then as I read on too, it's, his wife pays most of the expenses and everything, and the business pays, or sorry, the business pays most of the expenses, and his wife earns enough to keep the personal bills paid. So I do see that. But then if we need extra money, it's always in the business account. So it's almost like an emergency fund where if you need it, you can pull it. I like that. And maybe we're just not at a spot where we can pay ourselves
Yeah,
a good salary yet. So I think that definitely makes sense.
it makes sense. I mean, again, it goes back. I'm fully on the island of pay yourself what it would be to replace yourself,
Yeah.
and then see where you're at with cash on hand in the year, give yourself a dividends. I mean, but also create that business to where you build that machine and then
Yeah.
that machine can really pay you down the road as well.
Yeah. Especially, yeah. And like you said earlier, 1 and 2 years in, it looks a whole lot different.
Way different.
And just going back to the original question too, and, years probably 3 and 4, ideally you're paying yourself something,
Yeah,
a salary to start building off of. Cause if you're in year 4 and 5 and we're still not pulling a salary yet, it's time to take a hard look at the numbers and the work and your labor, like whatever's going on here, and say like, okay, how can we make sure that we get paid for this business that we're running?
I agree. Nope, we're on the same page on that one. I don't have any more in my pictures here. Do you have any additionals that
Oh,
you bring up?
I do. Yeah. So you must not have got those. The next one, we are weird. Both of us that are owners have government jobs, so a constant paycheck is not a worry. We at a minimum take $200 from the business each month, but if we take more, that is dictated by cash flow. Some months it's 1,000 or more. Other months it's a couple $100. At the end of the year, we will take a distribution or reinvest somewhere. Like,
What is
so
200 bucks a month going to get you?
that is a little confusing to me. I think
Yeah.
I think where I'm going with this, and avid dirtbag listener, so reach out to me if we're close on this, but I think it's just to get in the habit of paying yourself something,
Okay.
and which I like that. And if there's more, if they had a really great month, let's up that up a little bit. But they both have government jobs which pay well. So
Yeah.
they're not really doing it for the money, but I think it's just the habit. It's kind of like investing of like, let's at least put 1% in
Hmm.
and get started. So that would be my guess. But very interesting, because if you're making enough to pay yourself a couple $1,000 a month and you have the two government jobs, that's pretty solid. And then then it's the question of like, do you leave your job to go full time and give up all the benefits?
Yeah,
Which
it's
is,
tough. That's a weighing option because benefits
yeah,
are cheap. It's nice to get a paycheck to where you don't have to front that paycheck,
yeah,
and you're
yeah,
still able to operate your business. So
yeah. And as everyone knows, like they don't do you any, they don't give you any help as a business owner when it comes
no,
to benefits and extra curriculars. So
correct.
yeah, super interesting, especially with the government jobs. Um, this next one is Canadian company. Here we go. The first year, I took a 30K a year pay cut down to 100K. Wasn't happy with the profit of the company after the first year and dropped my pay down to 50K for year 2 and 3. Currently in year 4 and plan on making 100K a year, but am watching things carefully and may drop down to 75K or back to 50.
I get the adaptability and I can appreciate that because there is always ever changing markets and having the ability to have yourself adapt with the business is, it shows that you're there for the business,
Yeah.
instead of just saying, no, I'm staying at my salary. This is what I'm worth. Sorry if the business doesn't make any money, so be it. so I can appreciate that. But I mean, yeah, that if that doesn't explain a business owner, I don't know what does.
Yeah, dude. And I like how, and this might be taking it too far, but it's almost like gamified where
Mhm.
I did the very same thing where I was like, hey, if we hit this, like I get the next tier.
Yep.
Okay, if we hit this in net profit, I get this next tier. And then if we go back down in a 3-month rolling average, I go back down. And you kind of gamify it, but you always make sure that the company's taken care of and all the assets and all the employees and contractors are taken care of. So
Yep.
I kind of like how attentive he is in like, hey, if the net profit isn't where I'm comfortable with, we're going back down to 75, maybe to 50. And
Yep.
that's my demotion because I own this company.
Yep.
So I like it. And I also think too, I like how he came out right out of the gates paying himself in year one, 100K, because that would be my one worry is like, we wait 6, 7, 8 years to pay yourself anything.
Mhm.
And so I like how he kind of came out of the gate there and then adjusted it as he went.
Yep. Oh, that's cool. I like that. What other
All
ones
right.
we got?
All right. We got some more here. These are great. It's like every different situation. And that's
Yeah.
why thank you guys again for sending all these in because you got to be very transparent and open to send these and this is really helping. So, next one here, pay yourself a fair salary for your job title. In parentheses, we have your job title is your main role in the company. Profits, sorry, profits, then you decide if you take and how profits, then you decide if you take and how much based on personal goals and company needs.
Excuse him. He's had a couple drinks tonight, so
Yeah, I mean, that's just worded funny.
yeah, it just worded funny. But I mean, I understand it. Basically, it's kind of like it's basically saying don't overextend your business. Just look where the business is at, and then pay yourself appropriately from there.
Yeah, and it's kind of what we've been saying of pay yourself appropriately, and then if there's money at the end of the year, pay yourself a percentage and make it a distribution to yourself.
Correct. Yep. Very common theme.
Okay. This one, American-based excavation company, very well respected. He goes, one Wendy's junior chicken meal per week. But then he dives into it. He goes, $6,000 per month. Only just put myself on payroll this December, going into year 5.
Wow.
So year 5, $6K a month. Just put himself on payroll.
Okay. I mean, that's pretty good.
And we got a little bit more. Prior to that, I made 16 to 26K per year. And then we have a little bit more. My formula is how much money do I need to make personally to survive and pay my bills? I keep everything else in the business and use it to grow. I'd rather buy more equipment right now than a Lamborghini. In my opinion, you need to decide what your goal is for your business and what your personal goals are. If you want to buy a house or a toy, personally, then no different than bidding a job. Break it down. How much salary do you need to make to afford that? Then figure out what your business can sustain for your salary as a portion of overhead based on your company growth goals and projected revenue.
Very calculated. I like that. I like how we kind of dove into that towards the end, whoever that was. So,
all right, you dirtbags, we're going to take a quick break to thank one of our sponsors, Lambert Insurance Services. If you know Luke and I, you know we started this podcast to provide value to the construction industry. When we went to seek out an insurance company to work with, there's not a whole lot that are specific to the industry. And we really didn't want to work with a generalist agency, so we kind of put that on the back burner. Then we got to meet Sam Lambert. Sam is a fellow dirtbag himself. He's been in the industry for a long time, but he also started his insurance company in 2008 specifically for construction companies. So when we had that conversation, we knew that this would be the perfect match. So we started working with him, and he's been incredible. He leads first. He wants to be a resource first and an insurance agency second. They can help with provide general liability, workers' comp, commercial truck insurance, insurance for equipment, and so many more different avenues that he can provide coverage for. The great part about it is, they're licensed in most states and they always quote through multiple companies,
including Progressive Commercial Insurance.
So that's how you know you can get a competitive rate. And even better, Sam, he's the owner. He wanted to provide his cell number just so if you have any questions, specifically from the Dirtbags, you can always text him, give him a call, ask to compare plans, or just ask, what his rates would be. And then he can help direct you to the right place or answer your question from there. His number is 385-204-5799, or you can reach him at their website, which is lambert-ins.com. So reach out to him if you have any insurance questions. We're very excited about this partnership. Sam is an awesome guy, and we're just excited to continue providing value for all you dirtbags. So thank you, Lambert Insurance. Give him a text, shoot him a call, let him know that you're fans of the Dirtbags podcast. Let's get back to it. Yeah, and he had a big move too, so I know that was probably part of the, was making a lot more before. Now is making a more sustained dollar amount, new market, new customers, things like that. So yeah, super interesting insight. That's huge.
That's good. Yeah.
Another one here. We got, my business just had its 3rd birthday. I pay myself just enough to get by and pay the bills. I'm very focused on growing my company.
Cool.
And then last one here. I have always taken just what we need to get by. 3 years in, everybody's different, but my mentality is leave it all in the business. If you're still in a growth mode, cash has been critical for us in getting to the next level of jobs. And I think, Luke, that might be an interesting final point of like cash flow and keeping that in the business.
Yeah. Read that again if you can. I'm sorry.
Yep. No, you're good. I have always taken just what we need to get by. 3 years in, everybody's different, but my mentality is leave it all in the business. If you're still in a growth mode, cash has been critical for us in getting to the next level of jobs.
I would agree. Yeah. I mean, when you have a lot of growth, you need cash. And if you don't have cash, you're not growing, or you're just simply not able to grow. Otherwise, you're going to be struggling and straight up paycheck to paycheck every month.
Yeah. So when we talk about having cash, because I agree, I think having cash is important, especially if you're growing, taking that next step. But where do you typically hold that cash or keep it? Just a checking, savings account? Do you hold it in?
Yeah, we hold it in our operating account. I mean,
Yeah.
we have 3 bank accounts, right? With the Western side, but there's different accounts for each sector basically. But our operating account is what everything gets deposited into. And then, we'll have different bills come out of these different accounts, different types of bills, things like that. But I mean, I like to see that high number in the checking, and I want to always have it climbing. So that's where I like it to be. And then I have a really good idea, if I'm looking at that at the end of the month and I'm paying all my bills and I see like, hey, I have these bills covered and I have room to breathe. I'm comfortable. I'm happy. So it's kind of, for me, it's a peace of mind.
Yeah, 100%. And one thing that's really helped me is, so we use, most people listening have like a budgeting app or a budgeting software or somewhere where you can see how much money you've spent and are making. And we have a few dashboards. So I like to see just top line revenue, a P&L, profit and loss statement. I like to see gross profit. How much did we make, month and a rolling quarter, net profit. And then also like, I'm kind of a stickler of just like cash flow. Like even if I was spending money on stupid stuff out of the business or charity stuff that didn't get calculated into the net profit or whatever it is, I want to know exactly like what would be in the bank account if we opened it up. Because I think too often myself, I would look at the numbers and say, oh, we made $30K net profit this month. Sweet. And then you look at Wells Fargo and you're like, it's like the same. But then you had a bunch of other transactions, even like into our HSA account, maxing that out, or our Roth IRA or whatever it is. I like to see that in the final dashboard of like, what is every dollar that came out of the business and every dollar that came in?
No, I agree. Good points. Because it's just, it's fun to track is kind of what I'm getting out of it, you know.
Yeah. So final thoughts on, I mean, man, what a cool experiment, I guess, to like get all that data and just real info from real people that are doing it. Nobody's perfect. Nobody has the perfect formula, but what are your final thoughts on running through that?
Really good insight. Luke, are you comfortable about talking about what you pay yourself? Do we want to
Yeah.
go over that on the
Oh yeah,
podcast?
100%.
Yeah,
I always tell everyone I'm a wide open book. I
let's
could
do it.
care less. So, um, yeah. So if you don't mind, I'll just kind of run through
Oh
it
yeah.
here. So, I started Phaser in 2019, October 24th. Got the papers. I was working full time at the time. I was full time job. I made 40 to 50K a year, and knew I wanted to run the business on the side until I could pay myself full time. So didn't pay myself a penny out of the business for about 2 years. So fast forward now to August 4th, 2021. Olivia gets a job at Carvana, and we make a decision. And I'm either going to get another job in Arizona or I'm going to quit my job and go full time with Phaser. So at that time, we were probably doing about $8,000 a month in recurring revenue and had maybe $7,000 in the business bank account. And when I left my job, I was probably making about 50K a year. And then, but it was one of these things where Olivia was making maybe 30 and I was making 50. And then she jumped up and was maybe making like 60. And I was going to jump down
Yeah.
and go full time in the business. And my first paycheck to myself, I'll never forget it. August 14th, 2021, it's $500. Wrote a check to myself. And for every 2 weeks is going to be $500 to myself.
Cool.
And at this time, I was about 2 years into the business. But I knew I had written down every scenario of about 30% of my net in a rolling 3 months, I would get in a pay bump and I would go in tiers. So it would go from $500 every 2 weeks to then 750 every 2 weeks. So that'd be a pretty big jump if we hit our goals. And the reason I did every 3 months, like a rolling 3 months, is because I needed to see it consistent. I
Yeah.
didn't want to just sell a big website or get a few extra clients. I needed to see the net profit showing consistently over 3 months. So in 2022, I would say bumped up to about 1,500 a month, and then it got up to about 2,000 a month, and then probably by the end it was about 2,500 to 3,000 per month, which would be about 36. Actually, it was probably about 36 to 40K a year in 2022. 2023, we kept growing the business and ended up getting to about, my guess is about 60K a year paying myself, and just really focusing on making sure there's net profit, everyone's getting paid before me, but really growing the business to make sure that that there's money left over to also pay myself and our family. So probably around that 60K mark, and then really had some nice growth towards the end of 2023, kept working hard. And then in 2024 here, probably, around that tax time, maybe February or so, talked to Gabe, who's been our fractional CFO for the last 3 years. And, we're always like market-based wage, kind of based on net profit of like, well, if you're making X hundred thousand amount, like you can't pay yourself 30K a year. Like the IRS is going to flag that big time because we're an S corp. So, in probably about February or January, bumped it up to 100K flat.
Yep.
And so right at 100K, but that doesn't change. It's weird because it doesn't change anything in my life or our life, because the business still has to make, like, I see that as an expense. When I see the 8,300 come out, that is an expense coming out of the business because I'm the only owner of the company. So really I'm just paying myself out of my own company. And I don't try and celebrate that because it's like the money has to come from somewhere.
Correct.
And we've been very blessed with a lot of amazing clients that trust us, but at the same time, um, we have to keep growing this thing to make sure that we can feed everybody. So
Yep.
we're at 100K. And then it's interesting because this year we'll probably do distributions, but as you and I have talked about before on the podcast, I'm pretty conservative when it comes to like how much of a core capital target to keep.
You're very conservative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just like, I feel like we should have more, but then, you listen to anyone and they're just like, yeah, you built this thing, you're running this thing, you need to bring it home and do it that way. So, we're probably going to look at some distributions quarterly this year
Cool.
and wait it on quarter one just to get through taxes and everything. So quarter two, quarter three, and quarter four, we'll likely do a percentage of the distributions, which is just the net profit that's left over after taxes and everything. And then we'll likely just throw it at the house just to, because, and I want to bring this up too. And I appreciate you asking this, but the, what I want to avoid, especially if your business starts to see success, is the lifestyle inflation.
Yeah.
I don't think I deserve even like 100K, honestly. And so we've increased our mortgage payment and we've increased a few other payments too, because Olivia makes great money. We're making great money, but it's like, we don't want to just be like, oh yeah, let's go buy brand new everything. Let's go on all these things. And so I think that's important too, is not to let the lifestyle inflation catch up with you, because bad times will hit always. And we want to make sure that we just haven't inflated our lifestyle to a ridiculous standard.
100%. So Warren Buffett that says, if you pay for something you don't need now, you're going to have to sell something you need later.
Yeah, dude.
I think that's how it goes. Yeah, I love that quote. Love that quote. But no, super cool, man. I mean, there's a huge misconception with people that own businesses, because employees will think that owners have this big money pot that they're just taking out and putting into their pockets. And maybe some of them do. But I would say the majority of people are very, very like conservative on how they pay themselves through the business. Obviously, there's benefits of being a business owner. Like somebody explained earlier, they rent a spot in their house, they pay their fuel bill, they pay their car, payment, they pay internet, phone, things like that. Obviously, those add up. But being a business owner, you should be expected to take those out of the business account because they are being used for business.
Right.
But so mine, I got kind of an interesting path, man.
Yeah,
so
dude, I'm excited to hear it.
Yeah, so we'll go 2018. So 2018 is when I started Black Iron Dirt. Right, I was a lone soldier, skid steer pickup. Loved buying equipment, so I bought a skid steer, bought another skid steer, bought a mini, all in that same year. Didn't have any of the work lined up, but I bought them. And I remember that year I really struggled because I did not have very good cash flow, because I kept buying machines because I was like, hell yeah, they approved me for them. Might as well.
Might as well.
So, and
I was Bobcat, or who was that?
No, I bought my first cat.
259, right?
Yeah, 259. I bought a 259, and then I had that 259, and I bought a mini excavator. I bought a Bobcat excavator. I didn't have any work for it, but I was like, I had one job, and I was like, this is cool. So I bought it, and then I actually bought a skid steer from Dane that same year. So I bought 3 machines in 1 year when I was just a lone soldier, and I was like,
jeez, dude,
what the fuck? So that was my first mistake. But at the same time, I was full-time at a job. And around that time, I was a sales guy, and I was making, we'll call it 80 grand, probably is what I was making on my commissions. 2019, I have it written down because I remember them. 2019, I finally started making a little bit more money on my projects. I understood, like, hey, I can't just bill for what my monthly skid steer payment is. I actually need to make more than that.
Right.
So from the business, I paid myself 18 grand is what I wasn't salaried. I had just taken dividends kind of as I needed them. Or, if I wanted to buy something, it was basically like, yep, Luke, you can take these out of your account. If if you want to go buy a surfboard or whatever it might have been,
Yeah.
at that time. Again, still working full time at U Motors, was still selling boats. 2020, I believe I had my first employee in 2020. I believe Dylan had started in 2020. So with that came more hands off, and he was able to take a lot more, and we became pretty profitable. 2020, I paid myself 35 grand. Also 2020 on the motor side, I think that was the first year that I broke 200,000.
Hell yeah.
Oh, dude, that was like the peak of COVID when we were selling off-road stuff and boats. It was so much fun because you couldn't get them in fast enough. And as soon as you would post them, you'd sell them. Like, I remember it vividly, and I don't mean to go on a rabbit hole on that, but I was very content.
Yeah, you had a really cool structure too, because they were so good to you as far as like some flexibility of like you were
they were
starting,
great.
because it wasn't like you were kind of the weekend warrior, but then all of a sudden like it was bigger than that, and they were still flexible because you're, I mean, probably still delivering on the sales side, and
Yep.
it's like, if you're delivering and you're here most of the time, we're good.
And it was fun because there was two sales guys. It was myself and a guy named Michael. And we had a great agreement with each other. I took all of the marine stuff because that's what I know.
Yeah.
And he took all of like the off-road, on-road stuff. And it was like yin and yang, man. We
That's
were
sick.
fucking.
There's only two of you?
There was only two of us because,
What?
yeah, there was more at the time, but COVID hit. And the GM at the time was like, I need to make sure that the guys that have been here for a while are taken care of. So there were
Gotcha.
some recent hires. They were, I don't want to say let go. I think they took different opportunities because they didn't like how things were structured. And I mean, Michael and I put our heads down and we just went. Obviously, Black Iron to me was still kind of a side business at the time with,
Yeah.
it started growing some employees, but my focus was still on the boats. And dude, I had a blast.
Was it mostly like wakeboarding boats and
Oh yeah, it was, $150,000 boats plus.
man, that's
Super
sweet.
cool, super fun. Got to meet a lot of new people. That trend continued into 2021. I stayed the same in 2021. Same with boating. As soon as you got them in, you sold them the next day type thing. So we're having a good time at that, but we noticed work was starting to pick up a lot more. So that's when it was like, okay, how do I start to manage my time a little bit better? We had a couple employees at the time, and it was, contractors needing things, but hey, you've got people coming to look at this, and it's one of these, are you gonna be here for your full-time job, or are you gonna be here for your business? So that was a big struggle. 2022, that was the year, was it 2022? Yeah, it was 2022 when I quit U Motors. I was done.
Yep. We did a podcast on it.
Yep. And I was on my own. It was in October. Still made some good money that year from U Motors. Was happy, we split amicably. It was basically like, I'm getting pulled this way too much. I'm not able to deliver here. I got to choose one or the other. And obviously
was that a big drop then, or not too bad?
No, it was to the point where it was like, if this continues on, it's going to become a problem. It's not a problem yet, but I want to nip it in the butt before it does, because I don't want U Motors to have a bad reputation for me dropping the ball. Right. But I also don't want my business to have a bad reputation for me dropping the ball.
Because it's your business. Yeah.
Correct. So you're like, what am I going to do? Obviously, if you have a business and it's succeeding, you're going to go with your business, know? So that year I paid myself 65 grand.
Yeah.
So 2022
was the 65K, was that pretty consistent, like 5K per month kind of thing? Or
yeah, I was on salary because I put myself on a salary for that.
Were you an S Corp at that time? Do you remember?
I was an S Corp. Yep.
Oh,
I
okay,
transitioned into an S Corp into 2021.
Gotcha.
So that stayed, and then now I feel kind of bad. Your answer kind of made me feel bad about it a little bit. But I've transitioned, so everything is Western now. Cole and I do not pay ourselves from Western at all. We did not in 22. We did not in 23. I don't think we will in 24 either, just because we see how much we want to grow this, and we want to make sure guys are taken care of. Right. Like our PM, some of them make 120,000 a year. I want to make sure those guys are taken care of before Cole and I are, because we're sitting okay. But on the LDP side, I've transitioned that business a
So
lot
stop
to,
right there though. The LDP side, I feel like most people don't know what LDP
oh,
is.
so LDP is like Black Iron is a doing business as LDP Enterprises. That was the first like LLC that I filed. And then Black Iron Dirt is just a doing business as. So it's the same company basically. But now with LDP, LDP holds equipment, right? And it rents it to Western. But then I've missed sales quite a bit. So I
Yeah.
love buying and selling things still. And I can do that
Yeah.
through the business. So with the profits from that now, I actually pay myself the profits. And then whatever my, say I buy a pickup for 30 grand and I sell it for 45,000. I'm paying myself that 15,000 and I'm putting the
Mhm.
40,000 back in to see what other deals I can find. And in 2023, I paid myself 175 grand by doing that. And I'll hopefully continue.
Wow. By
Yeah.
doing that?
Yep. So, and obviously I kept like my salary, but just on top of the salary,
Yeah.
is what I've paid out and what I call my commissions basically. And hopefully into 2024, that stays the same. So
And then I guess so that's a good question then for Western. Do you have it's probably not even on your and Cole's mind, but like a compensation plan for the owners? Because it's
we,
interesting because
we've talked about it. And
okay, cool. Because Cole also owns Anderson Yard Works.
yes,
And so you guys are in an interesting position where you're like, hey, let's keep feeding the beast. We're good. Like we don't need this to turn our lights on here. Let's keep feeding the beast. But I'm sure you guys have talked. It sounds like you've talked about the
we have.
compensation plan.
And so what we want to do with Western, right? We each want to pay ourselves between $50,000 and $60,000 from Western.
Hmm.
But what we want to do with that 50 and, and we actually talked about this probably about a month ago, but with that salary that we earn, we both want to get, a financial institute behind us that just takes that salary biweekly, weekly, whatever we pay ourselves and start investing that. That is just strictly to go towards investments. So that's our plan that we want to do.
Personal investments or investments for the business?
Personal investments.
Cool. So it would be split apart from you and Cole. You guys could do whatever you want with it.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Okay.
would be our salaries,
Right.
right? But we're thinking long term for ourselves as well, to
Yeah.
where, whether it's we both have our Roths, where we've got our 401ks, but it's more into the in-depth of the investing side. Hey,
Yeah.
if I can put $50,000 into the stock market or whatever's hot at that time and somebody
Yep.
can do that for us, that's what is hopefully going to create our wealth. Our investments together are our machines.
Right.
So that's how we see it. We'll continue to buy the iron and find the right people to operate that business, and that's our investment together.
Yeah. So I've got a question for you then. Obviously, Western saw a lot of growth, bought a lot of iron. Is there a point like this year, next year, or any year where you slow down buying the iron and do more of like an equity position on your current pieces?
Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I would say we're really looking into that this year because we try to stay within a certain debt to equity ratio on
right.
things.
Gotcha.
So that's been very prominent this year. And I mean, that whole utilization calculator that Randy sent us, that's been a huge piece to tell us like what makes sense to own and what doesn't based on the hours that you put on. So if we have I'll take for instance our 306 that we bought. We bought that because we're like, hell yeah, this will be great for just small
Yeah.
miscellaneous things. We put 250 hours on that.
Yeah.
According to the utilization calculator, we need over 700 for it to make sense for us to own that.
And you put on how much? 260?
250.
Oh man.
Yeah. So it's like that doesn't make sense to own. So let's get rid of that. Let's free up
Gotcha.
that debt to where we can just rent that when needed.
Gotcha. And then is that usually just like a private sale? Like
Yeah,
throw
it's
it
just
out there? Yeah.
yep. Sometimes depending, I think that one's like through a CAT Financial. Sometimes you can get people to assume the loan through CAT depending on the interest rates, and then
Yeah.
they would take over the principal amount, pay you the difference, or it's just an outright sale.
So utilization rate, I know we've talked about that a couple times. Is that something that people can look up? Is that a very common thing, or are there resources out there for them?
Randy's the one that built us this spreadsheet it was his
Gotcha.
spreadsheet for the utilization. I'm sure there's stuff out there and metrics that you can fine, but we had to pay him for that.
Right. So
You
it probably takes like a well-versed coach is what you're
Yes.
saying, or mentor to get you those rates, because now, like, not only do you know your numbers, but knowing your utilization rates, it's like that's next level of putting the hours to the machine and saying like, oh yeah, we're short. We need to get rid of it.
Correct. And where's, you look at that on the back end piece, where are we wasting money?
Yeah.
Well, we're wasting money owning this machine because we're not utilizing it properly.
Yeah, dude. That's
So
interesting.
it's cool once you really start to get in depth with things, and it's fun to understand like how you can build a business to better everybody within the business. And if everybody has that mentality, it'll be great.
Yeah. And I think what's been so great about like this conversation is it shows that it does take time. Like, I don't think we had a single person paying themselves within 6 months or
No,
like crushing it within a year. And it's just, but that's the beauty of it too. Like, we're building assets. You can't just build the engine, you have to build the car around it.
correct.
And it's, yeah, none of us are in this for the short term,
No, it's a long-term game.
or at least you shouldn't be if you
Should
are.
be.
So
Yeah.
if you are in it for the short term, you should probably get a job.
Yes. Good advice.
Yeah, probably should give that up. So, dude, that was a fun one.
I think, that was a very insightful podcast. And it's fun to hear where other people, value themselves and what they can pay themselves. And again, it really shows that paints a good picture for what a business owner makes. Because again, I think there's a huge misconception of what people think owners make and, what they actually do and what that looks like. So,
Yeah, and I'll stand by it too. And I know we did promise the the blackjack story, but
good.
I'll stand by it. I always tell people that are trying to start a marketing agency, the whole, like, a big piece of how I learned what I know now is just through straight transparency through other people that were already doing it. People that weren't afraid to talk about their profits, how much they pay themselves, their numbers, their hardships, like everything. When you like just watch YouTube or it's like sugar coated or anything like that, you're just not going to learn what you need to know. And when we were talking to Ben Holmgren about that, his peer groups that he's starting up, I was just like, damn, this is going to be so impactful for those 8 to 10 contractors that are going out there and like diving into their numbers, opening up their books, talking about like the shitty things that are going on in their business, but then like patching it together. Like, that is where you learn the most, is just through straight transparency with other people that are currently doing it.
I agree. And it's just cool to know that those resources are going to be out there and, people really want to invest into learning.
Yeah. So, I mean, we got to go into it. So, you
Blackjack.
guys, yeah. So, okay. So, we alluded to it earlier. Was it just you and Chase that came?
Yeah, so we got invited by our RDO dealer, our John Deere dealer, to come down to Arizona. It was Chandler, Arizona. We stayed at what casino is that?
It
Do you
was like
remember?
Gila River, I think is what it's called.
Yeah, something like that. Super fun though. It's called RDO days. They bring you out and you get to, run all these machines. Chase and I, we flew in.
Like,
Was it a Thursday? No, it was a
no, dude,
Tuesday.
no, because
It
I
was a
came
Tuesday.
middle of the week. It was a Tuesday, and then I
Yep.
think I came Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay, so this is funny. So Tuesday we got there. I don't know, we flew in probably 4 with our RDO sales guy, John. John's hilarious. Used to play college hockey for Denver.
Yeah.
So just
Doesn't like to gamble. Doesn't like
no, he
to.
hates to gamble. Straight up, yeah, buddy, though. And so we get there, have dinner, mingle a little bit, have a couple drinks, talk, all that fun stuff. And everyone's like, let's go to the casino. Let's go have some fun.
Of course.
So we do. First night, both John was like, "Hey boys, take her easy tonight. You got an early morning tomorrow, going through some machines. Want you there. Like, don't oversleep." We're like, yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
Chase
for
goes,
sure. Yeah,
Chase goes,
obviously.
yeah, obviously. Chase goes to bed around 9 p.m.
What a guy.
Like really early. I'm like, hats off to you, man. John went to bed at around 9:30. Your main
And
man, Luke, dude, I stayed up. I went to bed at like 4:30. and I had to be up by 6. I had so much fun by myself, but I was violently hungover that next morning.
You're just like, was it all blackjack and drinks or what?
Dude, I learned how to play craps. I was sitting next to a gal named Susan, or Susie was her name. She was yelling at me on the blackjack table. I played with, there was, fuck, I can't remember where they're from, but they were there for the Final Four.
Oh,
Um,
Purdue.
yeah, it was Purdue. We called them the Purdue boys. So I played
Yeah.
blackjack with them. I was having a blast. I played slots. Ended up winning a good amount that night. I don't know how. First
And
night.
this is over $1,000 you won. I'll throw that out there. And
This was
it's
over $1,000. Yeah.
yeah. And
This
I mean,
was a good night.
for you and I, that's pretty solid. I mean,
That was a good night.
That's huge.
Yep. Okay, so day 2, go to RDO days, do the thing, watch all the machines. Great day. I hop on the phone when we get back, and I'm texting Luke. I'm like, "Hey, you're like 5 minutes away from us. Come to blackjack
Yeah, I'm
tonight."
20 minutes away. Okay.
20 minutes away, whatever. But the response that I get from you, first of all, was like, "No, dude, like I gotta pack. Like, sorry, I won't be able to make it." And I
Yeah.
don't remember what I said, but I twisted your arm to where you showed up. And what
dude.
what time did you show up?
So you were texting me and you're like, this is what I told myself in my head. I was telling Liv, I was like, okay, Luke and Chase, they want to have me out for dinner and like play some blackjack. And like,
Yeah.
obviously she knows I like to play some cards and
Dinner
I
was
like,
never included in that, Luke, but
yeah.
we can tell her it was.
And then you guys, you never like hit me up that night. I was like, okay, that's fine. Like, I'm just gonna like, it's a Tuesday. Like, I don't need to go
That was the
gamble.
first night. Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, let's let it go. And then the next day, like I actually had stuff going on because I was flying out that next morning. And then of course at like 5 p.m. you texted me, you're like, casino.
Yep.
And yeah, and I was just like, damn, I did not want to do this tonight, but I feel like my arm's being twisted here. And yeah, and I don't know if you have the text, but it didn't take much. I think
Dude,
I just twisted my own arm. And
yeah, I
just
think
said,
you're like,
"All
okay,
right."
I'm on my way.
I'm like, all right, what time you guys going out? You're like, we're doing dinner at 7 and then we'll probably go out at 8. And I was like, okay. And then I kind of talked to Liv and I was like, well, we usually go to bed at 8:30. I'm like, go to bed and then I'll just like go out after. And I told her this, of course. And then that way we can hang out all night and then she won't miss me basically.
100%.
And yeah, then I drove 20 minutes down to Gila River, saw you and Chase, and then we kind of just took off from there. Blackjack table. I can't remember the dealers' names, but dude, I'll say this.
We blew up that blackjack table. We could not lose.
For anyone that's still on this 2-hour episode, the energy that a blackjack dealer gives
makes or breaks the table.
Makes or breaks the table. I mean, I've had some that will just like barely flip the cards. And like, if you ask them like, oh, would you hit this? And they're like, I can't tell you. I'm like,
maybe. I don't know.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
But these guys, we had 3 dealers the whole time I was there.
Yep.
I was there for an hour and a half. That's it.
Yep.
And
you didn't even bring cash.
No, I didn't even have.
Luke doesn't even bring cash. So he's like, hey, can I borrow some cash from you? I was like, yeah, here you go.
No, I said it better than that. I said, should I get cash out of the ATM or should I come straight to the table and you Venmo me? Because I knew you're like, time is of the essence. Like, just get to the table. I don't care. So Venmoed you $300. You gave me 300, and we're like, okay, here we go. Our dealers were incredible, and so it was like, great. You were on my left, Chase is on my right, and we're just playing. And then obviously you have like the anchor, and then first base.
I was the anchor.
Oh, you were the anchor. So
remember, because the other guy, there was another guy there that we didn't know. He was playing first base. He had veneers and just kind of a silly dude.
That's right. So we had people kind of rotating in and out, but you, me, and Chase just let her rip. I've never had a more fun, successful, probably 4 shoes, 3 dealers, blackjack in my life. And dude, we just kind of ran the table, had a great time. They're bringing Coors Lights. I remember our guy brings them over. I'm like, how much do we owe you? He's like, oh, they're free if you have a player's card. We're like,
you signed up for a player's card?
Yeah. I'm like, well, sign me up. And then we tipped him well, and we're tipping our dealers well and stuff and just having a great time. And then, dude, the weird thing about this casino is there weren't any cup holders on the blackjack table, so all of our like
On the
Coors
blackjack
Lights were just sitting on the table, and I'm gonna go into your 9 splits here in a sec, but I I had a hand, and I was betting like 25, and then I'd increase if I kept winning, so I was like 30, 35, and I would just kind of stack on. I was at like 35, and then I slipped a 25 underneath it, so I was um 60.
60.
And obviously that's pretty big bet for me, but it like the table is hot. And then we just kept going. And on that $60 bet, I think I had like an 18
Mhm.
and the dealer was showing a 9. And I'm like, it's all right, guys. Like, don't panic. You win some, you lose some. Like we're gonna win it back.
It is what it is.
And they flipped like a 5 and then a 10. And I'll never forget it. Like I stood up, I was so pumped, and Chase sitting to my right, like uppercuts his
Fist bumps the air. and
Coors
punches
Light
the air.
on the table, like to give me a big hug. And like he just destroyed his beer all over the table, which is obviously like one of the worst party fouls you can ever make at the
Dude, the
blackjack
dealer's
table.
face, he was like, did that really just happen? Got it all over the cards,
Oh,
got it all over the chips. Like we're hooping and hollering because we're winning. And all of a sudden, like the energy comes way down. We're like, Chase, and he got all red. It was so funny.
yeah, and poor Chase too, because if you or I would have done it, like I think it would have gone different. Like
Yeah.
but he just felt so bad. And even the dealer's like, dude, trust me,
All
this
right.
happens every night. You're
Yeah.
good. Like in 2 seconds, the pit boss was bringing over towels, like damping it all
Clean things
down, and
up, yeah.
they had to dry off every one of my chips and give them back to me. And Chase was just like feeling so bad. And then
They
dude,
switched dealers out after they cleaned.
yep, they cleaned it all up. They switched dealers, and then I remember the dealer's like, "Is it wet here?" And we're like, "Yeah,
We're like,
don't worry
"Ah,
about
we
it."
don't know. We don't know what you're talking about.
And then, dude, to tee up the most perfect hand I've probably ever seen, your 9. So you had 2 9s. Do you remember what the dealer was showing?
So I had 2 9s and he was showing a 7.
And you're betting probably like 50.
No, I was $100 a hand.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Okay, so I had $100 a hand and I had 2 9s and I was like, fuck it, we're gonna split them. So I split them, get
And-
another 9.
and this is after the beer punch, and so we're already like
We're
feeling
feeling-
good. And so we're kind of standing up after the split, and we're like, dude, split them. You split them confidently. So there's $200 out there.
Yep. Another 9.
And
Dealer looks at me and he goes, you gotta. And I was like, you're right. Split it.
we're
Okay,
freaking out at this point because you have
put another
3
100.
splits,
Yep.
$300.
And then the last one puts down another 9. Okay, so I split that. So I have 4 9s on the
Yep.
table. Right. And he's kind of looking at me like, you're fucking dumb. And I was like, whatever. And then I doubled every single one of them because it was a king, a queen, a jack, and a king that he laid down on all 4 of the 9s.
Yeah. So no, but there's one more in there because there was a
There
5th.
5?
Yeah, there's a 5th one, but you couldn't split it because that was their max, and so you just had to
that's
take
right.
it.
That's right. Yeah. So there was
'Cause-
5 hands out there because one was 18 and the rest were 19.
Yep, because we just didn't know what to do. We were just like freaking out, and then he's like, "Yeah, you actually can't split it again because you're
Right.
at the max." And
Mhm.
then they took you for a roller coaster on the dealer showing his next card, but you ended up winning like $500.
No, it was more than that because I was doubling. I won a shit ton on that hand.
Yeah, dude, it was the most insane hand I've ever seen, and that was after the beer punch, after everything, and I was just like,
That was fun.
and that was like me being there for like 45 minutes.
It was quick
And-
because as soon as we like after that hand, I think we played a couple more, finished the shoe, and then we all got off the table. And you're like, "All right, I'm out of here."
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I said I'm out, and I grabbed my chips, colored me up, and from my 300, I was at 1100, and so I was up 800, being there an hour and a half, probably the most fun blackjack experience ever. And I was like, dude, I have no intention to gamble anymore. Like I'm
I
sober.
peaked.
Like I had 1.5 Coors Lights. I knew I was driving home, getting home before 10, like, yeah, let's go home. And then we played a little bit of slots and then lost some, but
Yeah, we didn't do so great on the slots, but
then went home. But yeah, went home, dude, like $800 up. I was pumped.
that was a good day. Yeah, I won on that blackjack table. I was up $4,000.
Jeez.
Yeah, that was a good night.
Yeah. And now I'm just like, man, maybe I don't need to go back. But I feel like next time we're in Fargo, we're gonna
have to go back.
yeah,
Yeah.
Fargo or Vegas, and we'll have a little meeting and
Yep.
we'll be back.
Teach the wives.
Yeah, for
But
sure. I'm
Kind of
sure
one
they'll
of
be
those you had to be there stories because I'm like picturing it in my head about how we were the only blackjack table. Literally, like the table would win and we would jump out of our chairs and
Dude.
just start fist bumping. And even
Dude,
the
the
dealer
dealer.
was like, "Hell yeah!" giving
But
us fist bumps.
dude,
And
that's what I'm saying. And going back to the main point of like, as a dealer, like they were so cool. They're some of the coolest dealers we've ever seen. And it plays into it because then we were tipping every single hand, and we were gambling the tip. So you'd put the 5, 10, or the 25, and then
Yep.
you double your own hand, you double their hand. And
Correct.
dude, and so they were making money, but it was just like such a fun time. I'm like, man, why don't all dealers just
Have
say
that
like, screw it, like I have to deal these cards, like why not just try and get the boys
some fun.
going here?
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, that's the blackjack story.
Dude.
So
Yeah,
that was
we
good
had to tell it at the end here. I know we kept you, but yeah, if anyone's still listening, go like and subscribe to our Blackjack channel. It's gonna be great. It's coming out here soon. And dude, Luke, that was a fun podcast, man.
Good podcast, brother. Yeah, it's fun to talk about owner's pay because it is kind of a hush hush topic, and there's not a lot of people that like to talk about it. And one, I don't really know why they don't like to talk
Yeah.
about it. It's not a secret. We tell people like I came from a company one time where you were not allowed to talk about what you were paid. Who cares? We have set structures as to everybody knows what range of pay everybody is in. It gives an idea of where that ladder is, and I don't think it should be a secret. So
Yeah, and go earn it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just so surprised too that this is such an underutilized topic to discuss. And so, thank you for asking the question to our original dirtbag and giving so much context of his situation, and then also everyone that answered in response, because I mean that's personal information. We can see who that is, and we know
Right.
that person, and we know them personally and professionally, and but nobody cares. They're just like, yeah, this is what I make, this is how long it took, this is my formula to get there.
Yep.
And I'm really hoping that anyone who is listening to this, if you still have questions, like nobody has the answers, but still, feel free to reach out to anyone in the industry, reach out to Luke or I. You never know. Like you might get a nugget or a piece of advice or a hint or something that could help you.
It's a lot of open books in this industry too. People are
Yeah.
very willing to help. So ask the questions.
Yeah, 100%. All right, dude. Well, let's
All right,
wrap it up here. I think that was a record for the longest podcast, but we will see you tomorrow.
Catch you on the next one.